Sophie in Croydon. Sophie, good evening.
Hi, good evening. My question is, I'm a single parent and I've been with my company since 2021. I had flexible hours because of my childcare needs. My current job role was dissolved and they now want me to work a different job role with specific hours. They gave me 3 weeks' notice, and in this time, the wraparound care at my child's school was full, and I can't find any childcare provisions to fulfil these needs. So I liaised with them about this. They rejected my new flexible working request, and they said my job could be in jeopardy if I didn't meet these requests. So is the short notice of them notifying of this change a mitigating factor? Could my job be at risk? And I could have put measures in place prior to this knowledge, but the short notice has been extremely problematic, obviously, for me to meet the needs of the business. And I am aware of ACAS Code of Conduct for them rejecting that flexible request. And I don't know if there's any protected characteristics, as I'm not pregnant, I'm just a single mother. I don't know if gender has any sort of impact on that. I'm kind of a loss for understanding of it, and I'm a bit worried because obviously I'm kind of, my hands are tied with childcare and wanting to meet my work needs.
Yeah, Sophie, I'm really sorry to hear about this, and it's so tough for all parents, but particularly for single parents dealing with childcare. I'm quite lucky. My kids are through that stage. Mine are in their 20s now, and I don't have to worry about that anymore. But I remember how difficult it was when I had to do the same thing, and it is so tough. What can you do? You said that your job was dissolved. Just explain what you mean by that.
So I work in home insurance, and my company that I worked for got bought by a bigger company, and they made a lot of redundancies, which meant a lot of job roles were cut, which means there were a lot of need to move me to a different department. So,
well, are you doing the same job function but for a different department, or are you doing a totally different job now?
I was in payments before. I'm now working in active phone lines. So basically they need me to be on late more to meet the needs of the business.
Yep. How much time have they given you? You said they gave you 3 weeks' notice, but you've been through a flexible working process, and they've now warned you that if you can't fit in, you're at risk of dismissal. It seems to me like you're getting more than 3 weeks.
So basically, I did everything that I could to try and source any form of childcare. I don't know if any parents are listening to this, working parents. Flexible childcare, wraparound childcare for children. If your children is in primary school, there's always a long waiting list, and unless you apply prior to the term start time. So I would need to be applying for that in July. I was told late September. Trying to apply for that now is impossible. I don't have family support. Her dad lives 2 hours away. He can do 2 school pickups a month. It's just impossible for me, and I don't want to lose my job. Yeah,
I understand. So just tell me, you're saying the issue is they didn't give you enough notice, but it sounds like at the end of September when they made this decision, if they'd given you 2 months or 3 months notice, it wouldn't make a difference anyway. You still wouldn't be able to get the childcare.
If they had told me in July...
No, but they weren't making that business decision in July. We've got to deal with the cards we're dealt with.
They weren't making that business decision, no.
They made the business decision in September.
They made the decision that they needed to move me to a different department and that I needed to change my hours.
Yeah. So let's deal with what is not what might have been if the world was different. What is they took the business decision in September, and your complaint was they only gave you 3 weeks' notice. That wasn't enough time. If they'd given you 3 months' notice in September, am I right in thinking that wouldn't really have helped either?
It would have helped because I would have been able to maybe put... I would have been able to put things in motion to maybe put my daughter on the list for the wraparound care at school and apply for that. But
I thought you said the wraparound care only bites in July.
No. I would have to apply for it in July, but they told me in September. So by the time I went to apply for it, that it was full. Yeah,
right. I think we're at cross purposes here, Sophie. I'm going to say it one more time. We're dealing with a business decision taken in September to require you to change your hours. Now, they couldn't have told you that in July because the business decision hadn't been taken at that point.
No, exactly.
So your
they
complaint...
told me very last minute to change things.
Well, it's not last minute. It was when the decision was taken by the business.
Okay. For me, it was last minute because I have no way of, changing things at that point.
I'm sorry. The last thing I want to do is get into an argument with you because I can tell how much difficulty you're in. But I don't know if I'm not being clear or you're misunderstanding me and we're talking at cross purposes, but they can't go back in time and give you notice in July for a decision they don't take until September, can they?
Okay, so it's absolutely feasible for them to just out of the blue to change things and for me to have to provide childcare.
That's not what I'm saying. But I just want to get clarity on what it is that you're saying, because you started off by saying they hadn't given you enough notice. They only gave you 3 weeks' notice. And the point I was discussing or trying to discuss was that if they'd given you 3 months' notice in September, that wouldn't have helped. And I think I'm right on that, but I just want you to say, yes, Daniel, you're right. If I'm wrong, tell me why.
I agree with that, yeah.
Okay, so let's move away from the point about 3 weeks' notice wasn't enough, and let's move on to what other options you've got.
Okay.
Flexible working, they are entitled to say no to a flexible working request. It doesn't have to be reasonable. It can be unreasonable. The law on that is going to change next year, but at the moment the law is they can just say no as long as they jump through some procedural hoops, which they probably did, because it's very easy to jump through those hoops. All they have to do is invite you to a meeting to discuss it. That's literally it. A claim for failure to follow the flexible working request rules isn't going to help, and that leaves you with one possible claim, which is indirect sex discrimination. And you mentioned gender discrimination before. The legal phrase is indirect sex discrimination. And what that is about is imposing a rule on you, which is you have to work these particular hours, fixed hours, which places a more onerous burden on women as a rule than on men. And it does, because women are often the primary child carers and have more difficulty with fixed hours or longer working hours. So you will have a prima facie case of indirect sex discrimination, but they can defend that claim by showing they have a good business reason for requiring you to work these different hours. And it all comes down, Sophie, to whether they can persuade a tribunal that they have a good business reason for requiring you to work these fixed hours as opposed to the old hours that you were working. Now, those old hours have gone. The job's gone. The job's been made redundant. You're doing a new job. And they'd have to persuade a tribunal that they've got a good business reason for saying this new job can't be done in the hours that Sophie wants to work. I don't know if they'll be able to do that, Sophie. Maybe they can, maybe they can't, but that's the issue a tribunal will be looking at. And I think what you might want to think about doing here is putting in a formal grievance, seeing how that goes, and looking for childcare the whole time, and then possibly seeing if you can reach some sort of negotiated exit package with them whilst threatening a claim of indirect sex discrimination. I can't promise you'll get a good result here, but it's worth a shot.